Hello, good friends. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I am going to be going through all of the books on my physical TBR. So I have a couple caveats here. Number one is I am new to reading physical copies of books. I am someone who has a really difficult time reading with my eyes exclusively. For years, I've been a very avid reader, but through audiobook. And as of recently, and recently I mean over the past like 6 months or so, I've been like an ebook reader slash audiobook reader. So like what I'll do when I read a book, any book, is I'll listen to it at the same time I'm reading it. So it's a really like immersive reading experience for me. So I will do that usually with my Kindle, and they have a dyslexia font, which is really helpful for me. Never been diagnosed with dyslexia, but that font really helps me. So do with that what you will. I have no idea. But I have started to read some physical books and listen to them at the same time. It has taken a bit of adjusting, but it's going pretty well. The tiny font is a little difficult for me, and some of the fonts are challenging, but it's going well, so I'm expanding my TBR. I will preface this by saying that this shelf is a shelf that is a shared TBR with me and my husband. This bottom shelf is my husband's TBR, and this top shelf is my TBR. So I'm going to be going through every book on my physical TBR, which just is ever growing because I have become slightly addicted to supporting indie bookstores. So even really popular series that I've bought from indie bookstores for the most part. Let's just dive into it. The first ones that are not on my cart that I'm going to go over are Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I read Fourth Wing last month and I absolutely adored it. 5 stars. And I'm really excited to read Iron Flame. Heard it's not as good as Fourth Wing, but while I trust that, I am going to give it a go anyways. And I loved the world so much that I'm sure I'll at least like it. So I'm excited to dive into Iron Flame. Next, speaking of flames, my next book I have on my physical TBR is A Court of Silver Flames. I have read the first 4 or 3.5 books in the ACOTAR series, and I just have A Court of Silver Flames left. I have read the ACOTAR series probably over the course of maybe like 3 or 4 months so far. And I've just needed a break. Like, especially after reading A Court of Frost and Starlight, that nearly put me into a slump. So I needed a minute before I dive into A Court of Silver Flames. I don't know how I'm gonna like it because I enjoy the story from Feyre's perspective. So I don't know how I'm gonna feel because I don't like Nesta at the moment, which I know is like the whole thing, and like you're gonna love her, and like that's the whole point of the book, but I'm not like there yet in my heart. So I've just been like putting it off, and I still have it in here because I don't want to destroy how nice this all looks until I'm like ready to read it. So there we go, A Court of Silver Flames. I guess then I'll just go this way, and then I have more in the back that I'll get to. So let's just go this way. So next I have The Mystery Guest by Nita Pose. And this is the second book in the series. I don't know what the series is called, but the first book was The Maid. And I really liked that book. So I liked the book, but I didn't love it as much as I love like a thriller. It's definitely more of like a cozy mystery. So I am excited to read this one, but it's definitely not like the highest on my TBR list at the moment. Next, I actually have 2 Benjamin Stevenson books. The first one being Everyone on This Train is a Suspect. I saw this at an indie bookstore and I loved the synopsis. So it was basically like, if you're on a train and like everyone there is a journalist or like studies true crime, and then someone dies, like everyone on the train is a suspect because everyone knows how to cover up a crime, right? So that sounded really fun and interesting to me. I'm excited to read that one. And then I don't know what this book is about at all, other than the title has gripped me completely, which is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. So I don't know what it's about, and I'm excited to read it. So we'll see. Next, I have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. And this I cannot wait to get to. I know that I'm meant to read Part of Your World and Yours Truly first. It's Yours Truly, right? I hope so. Otherwise I sound like a total dingus. But I know I'm meant to read those first. And I probably will, but maybe I won't, because I know it like will kind of spoil this. I want to read it so bad because everyone's talking about it, and I've never read an Abby Jimenez book before, and I already can tell that I'm gonna like it. And yeah, so it seems like people that like Emily Henry like Abby Jimenez, and I love Emily Henry, so I have been going back and forth as to whether I'm gonna wait or not. Time will tell. I'm currently reading the second book in the Legends and Latte series because I loved that book so freaking much. And after I finish that book, this is the next one I'm reading. So this is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. The only thing I remember about this from the synopsis is that there is a woman who, like, everyone in her family died and she is the only one left. I think there's someone that comes to live with her or work with her and maybe starts to uncover some secrets, or some things come to light. I'm not quite sure, but it's a thriller and I love a thriller. It's a great palate cleanser, so I'm excited to read that. Next, I got The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, and I really liked Love Theoretically. That was the first and only book so far I've read of Ali Hazelwood. So I'm looking forward to this one. Whenever I'm in the mood for the nude, did that just come out because there's spice in this? Whenever I'm in the mood for a nice little fluffy romance with some spice, apparently, then I'm glad that I will have this to lean back on. Next, I have Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and I'm a little bit nervous to read this because it's a chonker, but I am excited about it too because I hear it's kind of like Hunger Games-ish energy, and I love the Hunger Games. It's YA, which is something I don't know if I'm gonna love, but at the same time, it's YA fantasy. And I read Divine Rivals, which is YA fantasy, and I liked that, I think partially because it was YA, the fantasy was easier for me to understand, like the world building. So I'm hoping that this is the same and easy for me to follow, because sometimes I get overwhelmed with fantasy. Next, I have The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And this book my husband read and said this is a 6-star read for him. So I had to read it, of course. I don't know what this is about other than like maybe there's some parallel universes or something in this, but I know there's some talk of mental health. From what I understand, it's a little heavier or like kind of sad at parts, so I need to be in the right headspace to read this, but I am looking forward to it whenever I do get to it. Next, yes, yep, Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I've never read this series before, so when I was growing up, I was not a reader. I was very frustrated in general because I could not read well with my eyeballs, as previously stated. So I lied about reading books in school. I like would read Spark Notes and stuff like that, and that would take me forever, and my reading comprehension was in the actual garbage. So I did not read for fun when I was younger. So I missed out on like the Hunger Games and Twilight and Harry Potter and all that stuff. I've since read Harry Potter. I have not since read Twilight. So I am going to try it. My husband thinks I will like it. My sister loved this book. I do think I will like it. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know. Like, am I too old for this now? time will tell. The next book I have is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. And I know there's a Netflix film, I hate that you can't take this off, about this book. I don't know what it's about. I just know that it's a thriller and I'm always in the mood for a good thriller. So Woman in the Window, picked it up. Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Another Ali Hazelwood, but definitely different vibe from The Love Hypothesis from what I gather. Paranormal romance, vampire, werewolf, giving Twilight energy, maybe, at least from the covers. I have high hopes for it because I like her writing and I am open to the paranormal romance. I do like romance. I am a little apprehensive about the smut in this book because I've heard that it is just like disturbing and so weird and unlike any smut you'll ever read in your life. So I'm a little bit nervous about that, but I'm mostly excited to read this. And last on the front, but not least, The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. The only thing I know about this is something about the ending, so skip forward 10 seconds if you don't want to hear this. I know there's some like paranormal stuff at the end of this book, which I think is part of a twist or something, but that's all I really know about this, other than it's a thriller, and to me, the cover looks really interesting and the title looks really intriguing, so I had to pick it up. I'm a sucker for a good cover and title. I couldn't help myself. Okay, speaking of not being able to help myself, this is the first time in my life I have picked up more than one book in a series without reading the first one. However, this is supposed to be, I think, cozy fantasy, and I liked Legends and Lattes so much that I am just banking on the fact that I'm gonna like Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. So we'll see, by Heather Fawcett. I don't know if I will, but if I do, I already have Emily Wilde's map of the Otherlands. So there we go. Hopefully I like them both. I have quite enjoyed the first cozy fantasy that I've read, so my hopes are high, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, next I have What Happened to the Bennetts by Lisa Scottolini. I got this book at Half Price Books for $3. There are some really compelling blurbs on the back, and I do know that there are a lot of people's opinion whom I respect that think that Lisa Scottolini's books are really good. So I saw one, I saw that it was $3, and I saw there was some praise for it, so I thought, what do I have to lose? So I'm gonna give What Happened to the Bennetts a try. I think it's something like they're robbed, or not abducted, but like something happens to this family and there's an investigation, but this person isn't brought to justice, so the Bennetts, I think maybe the dad, takes matters into his own hands, right? So who knows what that means. But okay. Back here we have Bloom by Kevin Pineda and Savannah Gancho. I'm so sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. I don't know what this book is about. All I know is it's a graphic novel, and I watched a YouTube video about if you like Heartstopper, you should read these books, and this was on the list, and I was at Pride, and there was a booth of exclusively like queer, it was like a queer bookstore, and this was there, and I had to pick it up. So Bloom. And then I have House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I'm really excited to read this book. This has been on my TBR for a while. My sister, who we talk about books all the time, she recommended this to me, and I'm really excited to read it. I think there's some fantasy elements to it. This one I got as a blind date with a book off of TikTok Shop. First time ever buying anything off of TikTok Shop. I think it sounds really interesting. It's She Is Gone, The Perfect Couple is the Perfect Lie by David Bell. And this book is about a couple that like goes to their homecoming dance, and then after the dance they're like caught fighting. They get in the car to leave, and the protagonist, the boyfriend, wakes up in the hospital and doesn't remember anything that happened. And then the woman is gone. No one knows what happened to her, presumed dead. And at her vigil or something, the girl who's lost, her mom, accuses the boyfriend of killing her. So the boyfriend doesn't remember anything from this night at all. So he has to find out, does he think that he actually did something to her, because he doesn't remember. So that sounds like terrifying, very like crime thriller. Then I picked up Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, and I know there's some discourse about like whether you're supposed to read the Carvel trilogy before reading this, but then I've heard that it doesn't really matter, and I've heard some people say they don't like the Carvel trilogy, and I'm like, do I really want to invest in reading 3 books before I read this one? And this one seems to be the more popular one, the one that I think I might enjoy a little bit more. So I just went for it. And if I end up liking this, then I'll go back and read the Carvel trilogy. That's my thought. Okay, so that is everything on the top shelf. And here we're going to this middle shelf. So first, I'm just gonna get this out of the way. We got this we got this as a blind date with a book, and at like an indie bookstore that we frequent. It's called The Noise by James Patterson. This book I DNF'd. I got a few chapters in and was bored and just didn't like the writing and knew that I wasn't going to be able to get through it. So I DNF'd this bad boy. It's a chonker, but it's actually large print. So it's smaller than it looks, but it's still on this shelf because my husband might read it. And if not, we're just gonna take it to Half Price Books or something. Speaking of Half Price Books, we have 2 books that we got at, actually more than 2 books that we got at Half Price Books. But these are 2 of them. And I picked these out together because these are both within the Heartstopper universe. So they're both by Alice Osman. I have Solitaire here, which is about Tori, who's Charlie Spring's older sister. So more about her story. And then this one is called Loveless. And I don't know what this one is about, but I think it is also in the Heartstopper universe. So I am very excited to read these. I love Heartstopper so much. It makes my heart stop. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside, and I love it. I got this as a blind date with a book, and I have started to read this and got really frustrated because you can see how far I got. I got really frustrated because, as I said before, I listen to books at the same time I read them with my eyes. This audiobook and this book do not sync up. Like, there are sentences that are omitted in the audiobook. There are additional sentences in the audiobook. There are sentences out of order in the audiobook. It's very frustrating to not be able to follow along with a book. And I have this book physically, and I can't just read it with my eyes. Like, I have to read it with the audiobook, but that's too frustrating an experience for me to do. So I have to just listen to it via audiobook, which is ending up being a little bit difficult for me because there's a lot of characters. It's a little hard for me to keep up with. So I'm having a little bit of a frustrating relationship with the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman at the moment. But speaking of Osman, we have so many Osmans on this. I didn't notice that on this shelf. That's crazy. But I also at Half Price Books for $2 got The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman, which is the second book in the Thursday Murder Club series. I'm really hoping I can find a way to read this that'll work for me, because I don't want these books to go to waste. And I also think that the story is something that I would really like. So I'm hoping I can figure it out. Wish me luck. T's and P's. Thoughts and prayers. My husband says that all the time. He always says T's and P's. Last but definitely not least is Carrie by Stephen King. This will be my first Stephen King novel, my first horror novel, and I'm saving it for October. So it's gonna be on this shelf for a little while, but I feel like I have to read my first horror novel in October. Like, you just have to, right? So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm very excited about it. I'm familiar with the story of Carrie. I know what it's about. I know all the main beats and plot points, and I'm hoping that because I know the story a little bit, I won't be so scared to read it. I haven't watched the movie. I don't watch horror movies. I'm a big scaredy pants. So I'm hoping that I don't get too scared reading this book, but I am very intrigued by the story of Carrie, so I'm excited to read it. So there you have it. That is my whole physical TBR at the moment. Thank you so much for watching this. It is ever growing. I'm running out of space on my shelf, so we're gonna have to figure that out. We have a lot of shelf space still to fill in. Sounds like a good excuse for me to just make a TBR shelf when I run out of space on my cart. So anyways, thank you so much for watching this. If you enjoyed it, leave a like or subscribe or leave a comment telling me, are you putting off the books on your TBR or are you actually reading them? Like, please actually let me know. Let me know if you want to, no pressure, but I would like to know, am I the only one who is buying way more books than they can physically read, or at least at an unrealistic speed? Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.